collaboration with the Simply Good Food TV network, where today we're going to make Pane alla Cioccolata. Joining me today is Atinuke, and she is from Staten Island, New York. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
And Atinuke is with me because she is the proprietor of Pure H2O Online, which you saw in one of my earlier videos. I believe it was the pasti fagioli that I used a couple bottles of our water, and she's one of our sponsors with the Simply Good Food TV network. So she's joined me today to make a couple videos. And so you ready to get started?
Yes, and thank you for having me.
Oh, it's great. I'm just happy you're here. I'm just really happy you're here. So what we're going to start with is I'm going to have you measure out for me. Let me set this right on grams. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to measure our water. Now, when we bake, I don't know, do you bake a lot at home?
Not too much.
Not too much? Okay, well when we bake, generally when you bake bread, it's better to measure by weight than by volume because flour gets packed and whatnot. But I need 380 grams of water. 230?
Okay. Oh, how do you see that?
Yeah. 389, close enough. That's good enough for government work. When you bake bread, you always do by volume, primarily because the flour gets packed, and that way you can get a consistent bread every time. So now that we've got your water in, one reason I like to use bottled water, especially in my breads, is because of yeast, which we have 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. The growth of yeast is inhibited by chlorine. I understand your water does not have chlorine. It's not purified by chlorine. So tell us a little bit about your water.
Yeah, this is Pure H2O natural spring water. It is bottled in Pennsylvania by the source of the water. And this spring is natural spring. The government said anything that oozes out of a hole on the ground is natural spring. And the good thing about this spring is that it runs on a very good soil, because usually water, when it runs on the soil, it takes the properties of that soil.
Oh, yeah.
And this soil has very low total dissolved solids. So, so that gives it that clean, fresh taste.
And so what's the purification process for your water?
And then we use a process of ozonation, using 3 molecules of oxygen to decontaminate the water, instead of using chlorine, because chlorine is a cheaper way of doing water. But the same chlorine is what we use to purify swimming pools.
Yeah.
So why would we want to drink bottled pool water?
and chlorine is really inhibits the growth of yeast, which for bread's really important. The yeast is actually alive. Right now it's dormant because it's dry, but we're going to dump that in there, and I got to get my little mixer here. I have too much placed just off camera to make things a little more difficult on myself. Now I'm also going to add, this is a 1/2 teaspoon of sugar. Yeast likes sugar, so it kind of wakes it up, gets it going, and gets it all hungry. So I'm just going to kind of stir that in there. This instant yeast usually takes about 5 to 10 minutes to kind of wake back up. Now we're going to switch over, and I'm going to have you weigh out some flour for me. If I zero this out.
By weight.
By weight. And we want 600 grams. This is all unbleached all-purpose flour.
Okay.
And like your water, that you use a very natural means of chlorinating your water.
And remember, I'm a registered nurse.
Yes.
And I believe that you are what you eat or what you drink. So if you want something good for your body, you have to put in something good.
Well, absolutely. And water is it's so essential. I mean, there's so many sugary drinks out there now that, and a lot of different bottled waters that, quite honestly, aren't that good.
Yes.
But your bottled water, I love it. We had a couple cases of it. I think we've ran through all of our cases of water. And now this is unbleached all-purpose flour. Some of the, you're almost there. You're real close.
Okay. A little more.
A little more. That's pretty good. Actually, we're a little bit heavy on the flour.
Does it have to be like exact?
Well, the closer we get it to 600, the better our mix. We had a little bit of extra water, so we'll leave a little bit of extra. Now to this, I want you to add, so we're at 610. I need you to add another 125 grams of sugar. That'll put us at 735 total grams. So you shared with me that your employees are your family.
Yes.
You are a completely family-owned and operated business.
Yes.
That's great. I mean, to get your family involved and whatnot, that's awesome. So when you're not working or you're not, promoting your business, what do you like to do for fun?
I like to watch movies, and summertime I love swimming, and I love traveling.
Traveling, oh yeah. My wife and I, we don't get to travel enough, but what's your favorite movie that you've seen here lately?
I like the Black Panther.
We went and saw that the other night. That's an amazing movie.
Wow.
An absolutely amazing movie. So,
I never knew about this movie before. I just see a lot of hype surrounding that movie, and some of my friends showed me on Facebook that they went to watch the movie dressed in their African attire.
That's awesome.
With a drummer following them.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, now we have represent. So I was wondering, I was so curious. So my daughter took me to watch it. And I said, wow.
Yeah, I think it's an important movie because it's just to see so many African Americans in the same movie together that make make up most of the cast. That's really rare, especially in the superhero genre.
Yes.
I mean, I'm a geek. I like those superhero movies, those kind of Star Wars movies.
And I think silently they talk about the African civilization.
Yep.
Like people think maybe Africa is backward, but it's not really backward.
Well, yeah, and I think when they first start talking about the Wakanda, which is the made-up country, they're saying, oh, there's no resources, there's no money, when really, we know that Africa's rich with resources.
Is rich, yes.
It's just unfortunate that in the past that a lot of those resources were stripped out of the country,
yes.
and other folks made those monies. So.
Yes.
All right, so we've got this together. Now, when you make a bread, it's real important that you mix up your dry ingredients before we add them to our wet ingredients. And we've still got a few more dry ingredients to add. Well, this is a 1/3 cup of unsweetened cocoa powder. Just go ahead and pour.
We don't have to measure this.
I've already measured that out.
Okay,
that one I've already, and I did measure this one by volume because if we add a little bit of extra cocoa, that's kind of good for it. More chocolate.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can just go ahead and dump that in there. You're going to stir all this up for me. This is 6 ounces of milk chocolate chips. So we'll just go ahead and pour those right in there. This is 2 teaspoons of salt. So just go ahead and dump that in there. And then what I want you to do for me, if you can go ahead, I'm going to go ahead and clean up here a little bit. And if you can just go ahead and stir that together. If you make a mess, don't worry about it. I usually have flour all down the front of me, all over the floor, because my wife enjoys coming in behind me and cleaning it up.
I was wondering, how is this going to mix with this?
Oh, we're going to put it in here. We'll put it in our liquids, and then we'll add our dry goods over to our liquids. Once our yeast, you can see our water's starting to get a little bit cloudy here.
Yes,
and I'm blocking the camera. That means our yeast is waking back up. So when it gets a little bit more foamy, then this will be ready for us. There's many times I've had to edit out flour flying in all directions when I've hit the wrong button, so I'll help you out. So let's go ahead and switch this up. What I want you to do, this was 1 tablespoon of butter. Just go ahead and dump that right into the mixer for us. Another ingredient we need is 1 egg yolk. And I'll go ahead and take this so that way you just use the shell and just kind of go back and forth. Then we can just, if I can do this without making too much of a mess, we'll just drop that right in there.
Okay.
All right, and then what we'll do is, let's go ahead, thank you so much. I'm going to reach in front of you here and lock this thing down. And we're going to go ahead and just turn this on so our yeast and our egg will get mixed together.
Okay.
And then now what you're going to do, this is the fun part where flour flies.
Can we stop it to put the flour?
No, you want, while it's stirring, you go ahead and you add the flour. And the best way to do it that I found is just you can just kind of scrape it in there real slow. And then once you get down to, once you get so far, then you can just dump it in.
Okay.
And we're going to see how much of that cocoa shows up on your pretty white sweater. So while you're doing that, how can folks, where can they find your water?
Right now we're actually on Walmart.com.
Really, you're Walmart,
Yes.
back in New York?
Yeah, no, the Walmart.com is
Oh,
all
Walmart.com.
over the US,
Okay.
Alaska, and Hawaii.
And they can always go to pureh2online.com
Yes, you can
as well.
get it online too. You
Okay.
can. We have PayPal
PayPal.
on the website where PayPal verified.
You can just go ahead and dump go ahead and just dump it all in there.
Okay.
Just kind of tip it up with a little love tap. What we're going to do is we're going to let the paddle kind of do its work, and then we'll switch to the dough hook.
Wow.
And it
the
likes
dough
to
is
make a little bit
coming
of
out.
noise and kind of mix. When it mixes, it likes to show you that it's almost done. And that actually,
And that chocolate will stand out.
oh, you're going to love this. You're going to love this bread. So let me switch your spots here real quick, and I'll get the dough hook put on our mixer.
Oh, you mean the dough is all done?
It's almost done. So what we're going to do when I put the dough hook on, when you make a bread, you really want it to, you got to knead the bread to make sure everything comes together. That kneading process also activates the glutens. I like to use, because I'm lazy, I like to let my mixer do most of the work. So what I'll do is I'm going to let it knead in my mixer here for probably 5 or 6 minutes. Then we're going to get it out, and you're going to finish kneading the bread by hand, because really what you're looking for when you're doing it by hand is you'll feel the dough just become real velvety, and when you feel that velvet feeling, you're done. You should stop. You don't want to over knead bread because it can make the glutens tough and the bread won't rise. The goal is really to get it mixed to just that perfect point, and then we just we wait for 2 hours for it. But let's go ahead and we're going to get this mixing. I'm gonna set it on medium, and it'll come together in a ball, and we're gonna let it knead for 5 or 6 minutes.
Wow, this is really doing a big job,
It
I
does-
never know because I don't usually bake. So
Baking bread is one of those things. Once you get started, it grabs a hold of you, and it's something I just really started to enjoy, and primarily because the bread is really a living organism. There's yeast in there, real important, and it's just a lot of
see
fun.
how it's doing it so nicely and smoothly.
Yeah, it still hasn't really came together yet. It will come together around the dough hook as a nice uniform ball. Actually, before I let it get too far, I want to make sure that we have enough water, and that's perfect because you want your dough to be. I like a wet dough. Yeah, you want it to be sticky. Some folks will go, especially those that are new to baking, they go too dry because it is very easy to handle a dry dough.
So you can keep adding water to it
Right.
to get the texture you want.
Absolutely. Usually you try to do that as early as you can in the kneading process. That way the water has time to work clear through the dough. Okay, so our dough has been kneading for about 6 minutes. It came together really well. You can see it's a little bit moist. Now, we're going to teach you how to knead dough today.
Okay.
Since we've got your water working its magic with the yeast in this dough, we're going to let you knead it.
I can't wait. I can't wait to taste it.
Oh, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. The downside of bread is, I mean, you can smell it now. It smells amazing. But
delicious.
It's one of those things where you smell it and go, boy, I want to eat that. But it's going to be at least 3.5 hours before you get to eat this because we have to let it rise.
Oh, wow.
So it's a little bit of slow torture. So I'm going to put down some flour. And what this does is it just kind of keeps it from sticking to our board.
Okay.
And I'm going to turn this flour out for, flour a little bit everywhere, but that's okay. So what I want to do is just turn this out. Now, I'm going to warn you, this is going to stick to your hand. So what I'm going to do is flour your hands up here a little bit.
Okay.
And the way you knead dough is...
I see you are washing clothes.
Well, that actually would work, but the way traditionally when you see a bread artisan, a baker that bakes dough, they will tell you that you take the palm of your hand, you push away, and then you grab what you push away, you fold it back, you spin a half spin, and then push away. And you can do it one-handed. So let's get a little bit of flour here on your hands. We get a little bit there on the bread. Won't hurt anything. So what we're going to do, push away, and then fold it back over itself. See, this is a very, very sticky bread. All right, so we've got our dough turned out, and we had a little bit, I had too much, the dough's very moist, and I did not put down enough flour. So we're going to make sure this time, we'll get your hands good and floured up, got a little bit of flour on our dough, And that should keep it from sticking. So, oh, there you go. And then you kind of pick it back up over itself. There you go. It's still sticking a little bit. Let me put down a little bit more flour here underneath. There we go. That'll help it a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I can tell from looking at that dough that it is very, very velvety.
It is.
Oh, that's perfect. So now what we need to do, when you let your bread rise, when your dough rises, you want to, there's two key ingredients, moisture and warmth. Well, the bread provides the moisture because it's, we put a lot of water in it. It's a good wet dough. But we don't want to let that water escape. So I always put it in something that's covered. Now most folks, if they have like a large bowl, you can just oil a large bowl so the dough doesn't stick, and then cover it real tight. Make sure you cover it completely with plastic. I make so much bread that I bought these nice little containers. So you just drop that in there for me, and we'll put our lid on. In 2 hours, we'll be back, and we will finish up our pane alla cioccolata.
Okay.
Alright.
Can we braid it?
Yes, we absolutely.
Okay.
All right. So our pane alla cioccolata is risen. It's kind of grown. It didn't quite double in size. Smell that. The smell just keeps, when that yeast has time to do its work, it smells a lot better. And actually with breads, I got to get a little bit of flour on my hand. Sure, I'll go ahead and shape this into the loaf for us. Okay. Here I am, setting it in the worst possible spot. I blocked the entire shot. So with the goal is really not to try to knock it down. This dough didn't rise a lot anyway, but that's okay. So what we're going to do, we're not going to overwork it. I was going to make 2 loaves out of this, but I think what we're going to do is we're just going to do 1 long loaf. Now with your dough, what you want to do is kind of stretch it. And actually, I'm doing a really terrible job doing that with this dough because it's a little bit very, very wet. And you want that nice smooth surface. Those glutens are stretched out over the top of our dough. And generally, if dough doesn't have something to make it rise up, it rises out. So that's why I'm trying to kind of shape it long and kind of put it higher, because when it rises, it's going to go out. It's going to poof up when we put it in the oven. But that is going to be a nice big loaf. It will poof up. We're going to let this rise for another hour, and pretty soon you're going to be eating chocolate. Do you like chocolate, Atinuke?
I love so much chocolate that, after some time, especially during Christmas period, all they give you is chocolate.
Yeah, that's
no
true.
No fruits, nothing.
No, they give you the worst food possible around Christmas. So.
Yes, and then by the time Christmas is over, you've gained 10 pounds.
and then you can't eat and enjoy food anymore.
No. So these days I just go slow on chocolate.
So what we're going to do is we're going to let this rise for another hour. In about a half hour, when you bake bread, you want a really consistently warm oven. So what I'm going to do here in about a half hour, I'm going to turn my oven on to 425, and we'll talk about how long it's going to bake when we come back. But again,
it does look nice. It looks smooth. It looks nice.
It looks great, and I'll tell you what, it tastes twice as good as it looks. And
wow.
We're going to see, I've always made this before with just tap water, so I'm really excited to see the difference in taste, since you don't have the chlorine, you don't have all of the chemicals in there, to see how much that improves the taste of this bread with pure H2O. So
I can't wait to.
I can't wait to try it either. So stick with us, let this rise for an hour, find a warm spot in your kitchen, let the yeast do its job, and then we'll bake it. Okay, so our dough has been rising for an hour, and you can see it kind of spread out. Look at that. Looks good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That chocolate smell is only going to get better for about the next 45 minutes. So what we do is we bake this for 15 minutes at 425 degrees. That kind of sets the crust. And then we're going to lower the temperature to 375, and it's going to bake for another 35. So you get 45 minutes of chocolate torture. And then you even have to wait longer, because when it comes out, we're going to let it cool. But at any rate, I'm going to throw this in the oven right now. When we come back, you'll be eating some chocolate bread. It's going to be great.
Okay.
All right. I just checked, and it's ready to come out. So let me grab it real quick. Now this really puffed up nicely. And a lot of that is due to the water we used, since it didn't have any chlorine or anything. The pure H2O really allowed the yeast to do its job. I'm going to slide that paper out from underneath of it. You can see it kind of split open, and that's okay. The artisans, a lot of times they'll split the bread with a razor blade so that way they can control where it pops out. I like it to just be natural and just come out however it wants. This bread, see, hear that nice deep thud? That means the bread is ready. Now the worst thing is we can't eat it yet. You gotta let it cool. If you cut it now, it's actually still baking while it comes out. But we want to let it cool because when you slice bread, if it's still too hot, it kind of crumbs. You won't see that nice openness to it. Okay. We're not going to let it cool all the way. We want a little bit of warmth to it so that way we can enjoy it. Yeah, absolutely. It's nothing better than warm bread. What we're going to spread on this is we're not going to use butter. We're going to use some mascarpone to kick up the flavor a little bit. A little bit of nice Italian cream cheese on this wonderful bread. So what do you think? It smells really good, doesn't it?
Yes, delicious. I can't wait.
But when we come back, the torture will be over and we'll have a nice slice of this bread. So hang with us. So our bread has cooled. Our wonderful pane alla Cioccolata made with pure H2O water. So what we're going to do, let's see how good of a job we did on our bread here. It's got a nice crust on it. Ooh, look at that. It's chocolate chips.
Yes.
It was the kneading. You did an awesome job kneading this bread for us. So what I'm going to do, oh, look at that.
Wow.
We're going to use,
how rich it is.
It looks very, very rich. And we're going to put a little bit.
And it smells delicious.
Oh my gosh. I know, the smell coming off that. We're going to put a little bit of mascarpone. Not a lot. This isn't going to take a lot.
Wow.
There you go.
Thank you.
Let's move these bottles of water out of the way. Your wonderful dish there.
I have to take a picture before eating it, if you don't mind.
Go right ahead. The days of social media, I do the same thing when we're out. People look at me odd when I'm get a nice dish of food and I want to pause and get a wonderful picture. My wife is setting off screen, so I'm going to ramble on in this shot so she can't get her slice of the bread. So what do you think? I know here you are with a mouthful of bread. I'm saying, hey, how good is it there? Well, you're on camera.
Delicious.
So I'm gonna give my bread a try.
You should try it. Delicious.
This is amazing. It's got a really good crust.
Soft.
Yeah, very soft in the middle. It's got a very good crust on it. I like a good crispy crust. Very rich, and the mascarpone really sets it off. Thank you so much for traveling clear from Staten Island to
Columbus, Ohio.
Yep, to Columbus, Ohio to record some videos with me. And to you, the viewers, thank you so much for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Click that subscribe button in YouTube. Download the Simply Good Food TV app and look for Pure H2O on social media. Connect with them and check them out online. PureH2Oonline.com. Again, thanks for watching and ciao.